Close your eyes now and let your breath grow slow and still. The room around you is quiet. You are safe. Let the flickering thoughts of the day settle like falling ash in an old hearth. You are not even one of the Queen's favorites. The water is lukewarm at best, drawn from stone basins chilled by the dawn. Elizabeth does not bathe in the way you imagine. Full-body baths are rare, seen as dangerous, even sinful. Instead, she dabs her face with vinegar-soaked cloths, layered with dried rose petals and astringent herbs. She will decide depending on the visitors scheduled, the politics at play, and the weather. You help lace the bodice, but never touch her directly. The Queen eats lightly, a slice of manchet bread, a bit of cheese, maybe pomegranate seeds or sugared violets. You help prepare the table, hands trembling as you place the dishes. If you speak out of turn, if you pour too much wine, if your fingers shake too visibly, it will be noted. Someone always notices. You move like air, like ritual. When her face is powdered and her ruff is set, she becomes a different creature altogether. Regal, untouchable. You lower your eyes when she rises. Perfume masks the stink of unwashed clothes, of chamber pots dumped too hastily. Everyone is smiling. Everyone is watching. And somewhere beyond the velvet curtains, Queen Elizabeth watches too, always. Each piece must be pristine, the ruff stiff and starched, the bodice laced just so, the sleeves heavy with embroidery, but not wrinkled. You feel your hands sweat as you lift the fabric. If you drop it, if you so much as let a hem brush the soot from the hearth, you will be dismissed. Not kindly. You prepare the mixture carefully, avoiding eye contact with the older maids who've been here longer. One wrong move and your future could be over before the Queen is even dressed. You are a court attendant, young, nervous, and painfully aware that everything you do today must be flawless. The palace is cold even at noon, the windows drafty despite the layers of glass and shutter. You are summoned again this time to accompany a lady-in-waiting to fetch correspondence from Walsingham, the Queen's spymaster. You say nothing as you walk. Every hallway hums with rumors. You hear a man whisper about treason. Another speaks of a Spanish envoy. You pretend not to hear. Pretending is how you survive. You rise in the dark. There's no time to stretch or yawn or linger. You throw on your gown, still damp from yesterday's laundering, and rush to the outer chambers. The Queen must never wait. Imagine candlelight dancing on stone walls, the scent of lavender tucked inside linen, the distant toll of a chapel bell fading into hush. You are being pulled gently into a different time, now a time of velvet gowns and sharp glances, of gold thread and hidden daggers, a power wrapped in perfume and silence. Let your mind drift, let your body soften, and I'll take you there. Our story tonight begins in the year 1588, at the heart of a palace that was both fortress and stage. You wake before sunrise, not in a bed, but on a rough straw mattress tucked against the cold wall of a servant's dormitory. You are not nobility. You and the other attendants move like shadows, carrying buckets of fresh water for Her Majesty's morning wash. Her private chambers are silent. Tapestries cover the walls to block the cold, but the floor is still icy beneath your worn shoes. You're told to knock twice, never once, never 3 times, and then wait to be summoned. You do, and a soft voice answers, "Enter, Inside, the Virgin Queen is already seated by her mirror. Her red wig has been removed. Her skin is pale beneath the powder. She looks smaller in this quiet light, older, but still sharp, still dangerous. You do not speak unless spoken to. Today you are tasked with laying out the Queen's gown. Not one but three choices. Eventually, the Queen chooses crimson, a bold color, one that signals dominance. Breakfast is not served in the way you'd expect. After the meal, the day truly begins. The court is alive now, swarming with nobles, ambassadors, musicians, and spies. In the great hall, courtiers gather like birds in bright plumage. The Queen appears like a storm masked in silk. She enters the chamber slowly, each step choreographed, her stiff gown whispering secrets across the polished stone. You are careful not to look directly at her unless permitted. Her gaze can pin even the boldest courtier to the wall like an insect. Her presence is both magnificent and exhausting, the kind of majesty that demands absolute stillness from those beneath it. You don't understand the diplomacy at play, only that every word is a weapon, every pause a calculated trap. To rule England is not to rule gently. It is to balance on a knife's edge, smiling while others hope you slip. And she never slips. The crimson gown is exchanged for a softer pearl gray, threaded with moonlight and edged in lace finer than any thread you've touched before. Who's weak? She walks slowly, pausing before statues and manicured hedges, while her court flutters behind her like nervous birds. You are instructed to carry a fan of ostrich feathers, and it takes all your strength not to tremble as you hold it. Her skin must not touch the sun. Her image must not crack. You walk behind her. You match her pace. Who whispered to whom the night before? The wig is changed to one of her 40. This one adorned with pearls that took weeks to sew in place. Her jewelry is heavy like armor, and you'll do everything in your power not to be noticed. You notice how her shoulders tighten under the weight, not with thanks, not with praise, but with a hand gesture from one of the older attendants. Your legs ache, your back is stiff, and your mind is still reeling from the intensity of a single glance, a single hour under the eyes of the Virgin Queen. She does not speak right away. She walks. She waits, and everyone holds their breath, and then she's gone again, gliding back into her chambers like a swan disappearing into reeds. The moment ends, and the hall exhales. You are standing near the back of the chamber, near the columns, your hands clasped and eyes lowered. She speaks to him curtly, and he stumbles through a bow before retreating. Lutes, virginals, and low voices echo in the long gallery where the Queen sometimes dances. Not tonight. Tonight she watches, expression unreadable. You stand by the wall, still holding the fan, though your arms are tired, and your eyes burn from the smoke of a dozen candles. The Queen eats a sugared plum. You haven't eaten since dawn. His name won't be spoken aloud tomorrow. That's how fast you can vanish here. The air in the palace is always dry from the constant burning of rushes and candles, yet still somehow damp with tension. The scent of beeswax polish, lavender oil, and rotting meat from last night's banquet lingers under the perfumed haze. No one coughs, no one shifts. Not when the Queen is present. You lie down in silence, still in your clothes, hands red from scrubbing, fingers cramped from folding. No one speaks. No one laughs. Sleep is not peace here, it is collapse. She speaks to a Spanish ambassador. her voice delicate and airy, but laced with warning. When the meeting ends, she turns her head slightly in your direction. Your stomach knots. But she's not looking at you, just past you. You return to your duties, now charged with preparing her writing desk. It is a sacred ritual. The ink must be fresh. The quill must be trimmed to perfection. Her letters, dozens each day, must be folded into sharp corners and sealed with a royal stamp. Sometimes she dictates in Latin, sometimes in French. Sometimes she writes alone, scratching with such intensity you fear the paper will tear. You stand near the door, barely breathing, ready to fetch more parchment or a dry cloth for blotting. Her handwriting is beautiful, small, angry. After midday, you assist with the wardrobe change. She says nothing to you, but you can feel that she knows you're there. She always knows. She knows who's loyal. Later, a procession is held in the gardens ostensibly for leisure, but nothing in this court is leisure. A nobleman falls out of favor during the stroll. You don't know why no one does. At twilight, the musicians begin to play. When the music ends and the queen departs again in silence, you are dismissed. You return to the servants' quarters long after darkness has taken the windows. And tomorrow you'll rise before the sun again. You'll powder lace. You'll carry letters. You'll memorize faces. Because in Queen Elizabeth's palace, being noticed is never safe. Morning returns not with bird song, but with the sound of boots on stone. Someone above you coughs. Another shifts beneath a blanket. The floorboards creak, and the world reminds you gently that even dreams do not belong to you. You wake sore, but you wake quickly. There is no time for delay, not when you serve a woman whose patience is thinner than parchment. King Henry's portrait looms above the hearth, face stern and watching. She does not look away as you pour the rose water. She does not speak. One by one the petitioners come forward. Some kneel. One of the older attendants mutters something under her breath, too soft to catch. You don't ask her to repeat it. Some cry. One noble offers her a jewel-encrusted pendant. Another offers allegiance in the form of flattery, but her eyes do not soften. This time you're told not to return until dawn. A mercy. You walk back to your quarters slowly, shoulders aching, dress heavy with soot and perfume. As you pass a window, you catch your reflection in the glass eyes sunken, posture stiff. You barely recognize yourself, but that doesn't matter. Recognition is not survival here. Silence is. She listens. She judges. And she remembers everything. You stand beside the inner curtain, watching, learning. You begin to understand that ruling is not ceremony. It is calculation and survival. The silence stretches long, and when she finally stands, it's like watching the sea shift. You step back. You are dismissed. You haven't eaten, but that's not new. Hunger in the palace is a quiet sort, not the loud emptiness of peasants, but the tight, constant edge of a stomach never quite full. You bite your cheek and straighten the queen's fan when she glances toward it. Shadows climb the walls, and a fire is crackling in the corner hearth. You help light the candles, dipping your fingers into beeswax, pinching the wicks just so. One sputters, you panic, but it catches again, and no one saw. You think, you hope. She does not say thank you. She never does. You splash your face with cold water, dry it with a rough cloth, and braid your hair back tightly. Your shoes are still damp from the garden's dew the night before. and you slide them on anyway, not to eat, but to fetch a honeyed cake for one of the Queen's favored ladies. The halls leading there are warmer, thick with smoke and steam. The kitchen is chaos. Boys churning butter, cooks slicing eels, a scullion sobbing quietly as he scrubs a copper pot for the third time. You find the cake round, soft, brushed with rose syrup, and wrap it gently in cloth. On the way back you pass the chapel, where a priest kneels in prayer. His voice is low, almost humming. You wish you could stop and rest there, just for a minute. But the Queen is waiting. The palace always smells different in the morning. Today it's a mix of candle wax, wet wool, and the faint metallic tang of armor. A noble from the north has arrived, and his guards are lined up near the entrance, clanking like wind chimes as they shift in their polished mail. You do not meet their eyes. You move past them silently, carrying a tray of rosewater for the Queen's mourning cloths. Every drop has been strained through muslin, scented with rosemary and thyme. It's meant to wake the skin and tighten it, though you know what the scent really does. It covers the rot, the sweat, the natural human smell that is not allowed in court. Inside her chamber, she sits quietly, gazing at a painting of her father. Elsewhere, the palace is already alive with tension. Today is the day of a royal audience, a parade of hopefuls, diplomats, and noblemen come to win favor. You have been assigned to assist in the audience chamber, brushing the chairs with a cloth soaked in lavender, vinegar setting down cushions, making sure the air does not carry the smell of the moat drifting up from below the floorboards. You work quietly, each movement rehearsed. Even your breathing feels choreographed. When the Queen enters, everything freezes. The musicians stop tuning. The courtiers bow like wheat in wind. And then it begins. Hours pass. You shift your weight from one foot to the other, trying not to let your knees shake. At last, she waves the final guest away and exits with a single nod. You're allowed to exhale. You are sent to the kitchens. Back in her chambers, the light has changed. It's late now. When the Queen finally retreats to her writing desk, you're dismissed once more. And as your head finally touches the straw pillow, your last thought is not of glory or gowns or crowns, but of sleep. Because in Queen Elizabeth's palace, even dreams come second to duty. The straw mattress scratches your skin as you turn slightly in the dark. Somewhere in the hallway, a rat scurries through the beams, but you're too tired to flinch. It's just part of the palace now, just like the groaning timbers, the thin walls, and the way the air smells of ash and pressed linen. You've learned to sleep lightly, ears tuned to footsteps, bells, or the occasional barked command that might pull you from rest before dawn. But for now, the world stays still. The fire outside your quarters has burned down to its bones, and your limbs sink heavily into the straw. You drift for a while in that fragile space where the body forgets its weight. Your eyes ache, but you do not sit. You do not shift your weight. Even the air feels heavier here, like every breath must pass through 100 layers of expectation. A yawn threatens to slip from your throat, but you bury it. Her eyes meet yours, and for a moment, it feels as if she sees everything. Not just your fear, but the hunger, the numbness in your fingers, the invisible map of aches drawn across your back. She sees all of it, and then she looks away. Some of the others are rising now, rubbing sleep from their eyes, pulling on layers, unaware that you've already lived a second lifetime since they last spoke. You lie down for a moment, fully clothed, and let your body rest. The room smells of wool and smoke and sleep. You let yourself close your eyes. Exhaustion is a private indulgence. You don't own it anymore. You pass a man asleep on a bench, a dog curled near the base of a tapestry, the scent of coal smoke curling through the morning air like a lullaby made of soot. The palace is softer at this hour, worn at the edges like a dress that's seen too many dances, but it never lasts long. A sharp knock on the outer door brings you back to the surface, blinking in the dark. You hand the letters to one of his aides and turn away without a word. There is no praise, no coin, no smile, just the quiet satisfaction that you have not erred, that you have delivered what was asked, that you are still part of the palace, if only for one more day. The letters are done. Her gown rustles as she walks toward the window, where dawn has begun to silver the sky. It's quiet, and then, to your shock, she speaks your name. It's still night too early for morning chores, only motion. A message, perhaps. A change in duty. You wrap yourself quickly in your overgown, feet cold as stone as they touch the floor. She is seated at her desk, writing by lamplight, surrounded by parchment and a single black feather. Some are written in English, some in French, a few in Latin. None are for you. You never open them, only place them where she commands. Her hands move like clockwork, scratching words into paper, blotting them with dusted sand, folding with precision. She speaks only once, asking for a fresh quill. Her voice is raspy, thick with sleeplessness, yet it still echoes with the weight of command. A few of her closest women stand behind her, tense and silent. She does not look up when you enter. You are directed to assist with sorting her correspondence letters from nobles, from foreign courts, and from people whose names you do not recognize but whose wax seals bear the weight of entire provinces. A servant from the guard tower stands in the hallway, his breath fogging the air. You're needed in the Queen's private chamber, immediately. There is no room for fear in your steps. The Queen's private quarters are warm, golden with candlelight, and crowded with silence. You work quietly, eyes canning the dates, arranging them in neat rows on the side table. Hours pass. The candles burn lower, flickering against her jeweled rings and the polished curve of the inkstand. At last she stands, her chair sliding back on the stone with a slow sigh. It is the first time you have heard it spoken aloud in this palace. She tells you to bring the sealed letters to Walsingham at first light. Her voice is low, deliberate. She tells you to guard them with your life. You take the letters. Your hands tremble slightly, but you hold the bundle firm against your chest as you leave the room. The hallways are quiet now. By the time you reach Walsingham's quarters, the sun is just brushing the tops of the frost-covered hedges. When you return to your quarters, the dormitory is stirring, and for a few minutes you are no one again. Just breath, just warmth, just silence. The sun is higher now, glinting through narrow windows with pale winter light. You stir again, not because anyone wakes you, but because your body has learned never to rest too deeply. 1 hour is all you could steal. That's enough. You rise slowly, rubbing the stiffness from your neck, and glance toward the window where frost still webs the corners of the glass. The day has begun. There are shoes to scrub, fabrics to press, and orders to await. And above it all, Her Majesty will want her presence felt in every corridor, even when she is not there in body. Venison is being turned on a spit for the evening feast, and the scent rich, smoky, dizzying curls through the air like incense. This time she sits in her solar, a more private chamber warmed by fire, wrapped in soft carpets, with tapestries that whisper of lions and saints. She is not wearing her crown, only a simple headdress today, though her gown is no less elaborate. She looks tired, or perhaps thoughtful. A musician plays softly in the corner, and for a moment nothing else passes between you. No praise, no dismissal, just acknowledgment. A queen who knows your name. And then she turns back to the fire. She tells you to pour her a cup of warmed wine, and you obey, heart steady now. You have learned not to fumble. You are called to the gallery shortly after, not to serve food, but to dust the banisters and arrange the cushions before the guests arrive. You move quietly, working in rhythm with another girl you barely know. You wait just outside, in case she needs anything, but she does not call. You speak only once to ask if she's finished with her side of the room. She nods. Nothing more. You smooth your gown, adjust your cap, and step back into the machine of court. Your first task is to assist in the wardrobe chamber. Today, it's repairs. One of the queen's gowns, the one embroidered with Tudor roses and silver moons, has torn at the shoulder. One of the younger attendants beside you whispers, not loudly, but enough for you to hear a rumor about a courtier who's fallen out of favor. There is a rhythm to this life. Not a safe one, not a kind one, but a rhythm nonetheless. You do not answer. You've learned already that repeated words are the ones that echo longest. You keep your head down, pretending not to hear, and continue folding the fabric with careful precision. You sweep the rushes, replacing them with fresh ones, mixed with mint and sage. You fluff the pillows, still heavy with lavender and dried rose. You lay out her night robe, a garment, so fine it gleams in the candlelight like pearl dust. You light the small hearth fire, careful to keep the flames low but warm. This is the final ritual, the winding down. The hush before darkness settles across every stone in the palace. Loyalty here is measured not in action, but in restraint. You are not allowed to sew it yourself, but you must thread the needles, prepare the pins, and help lift the heavy fabric with two other girls as the senior seamstress begins her delicate work. The gown smells faintly of perfume and warmth, perhaps from the queen's body, or perhaps from the heated stones of her chamber. As you help fold back a sleeve, your hand brushes against a pearl no bigger than a teardrop. It gleams coldly against the satin. You don't dare touch it again. When the seamstress leaves to fetch additional thread, silence settles like dust across the chamber. A bell rings in the corridor. Midday meal. You're not expected at the queen's table, of course. Only her inner circle attends. You re-handed a trencher, a slab of stale bread used as a plate, and given a small wedge of cheese, an onion, and watered ale. You sit on a low bench beside the scullery wall, listening to footsteps echo on the stone. The ale is bitter but cold. You drink it quickly, eyes watching the shadows stretch along the floor. The kitchens buzz with life, even from a distance. Later that afternoon, you are summoned once again to Her Majesty's presence. She asks your name. You say it, softly. She nods. You back away, slowly, gratefully. It is already near dusk when you are told to prepare the queen's bedchamber. When she arrives, flanked by her ladies, you are already gone. You walk slowly back to your quarters, hands raw, back aching, but heart strangely steady. And tonight you will sleep just a little deeper, because today you were not dismissed. You were not forgotten. You were seen. Sleep comes easier this time, not because your bed is any softer or the air any warmer, but because your body has surrendered to the rhythm. You no longer resist the cold straw or the distant clanging of guards at the gatehouse. Instead, you drift beneath it, carried on the dull weight of exhaustion. The palace sleeps with you now, its stones grown quiet, its torches guttering out one by one. Somewhere a dog barks once and then falls silent. The world is still until morning, and morning again does not wait for permission. News has arrived, a messenger from the northern coast with letters stamped in red wax. You hand the letters to the steward and turn back toward the inner yard, careful not to slip on the frost-slick stones. As you walk, you pass a group of boys practicing sword drills in the training yard sons of nobles. Laughing beneath their breath, blades flashing in the cold sun, one glances your way. You keep walking. You are not meant to be seen. You're not told what they say, only that you must carry a reply to the stablemaster, who is to send riders to 3 distant towns before dusk. The Queen does not send messages lightly. Whatever is happening, it matters, and you feel it beneath the ceremony, beneath the silence like thunder trapped under stone. Before the sky has begun to lighten, you are roused by the shuffling of feet and the murmured sounds of others dressing in the dark. But first you wash your hands in the cracked basin, watching the brown water swirl down the drain like ink. The palace is quieter now. The Queen has retreated to her inner rooms. The courtiers are finishing their wine, and outside the frost is creeping up the windows, weaving tiny stars across the glass. It is not your place to worship here, not really. She needs someone to grind dried bark into powder and measure out pinches of valerian root. You do not ask what it's for. The herbalist dismisses you with a curt nod. No thanks. But you're not expecting any. You pass the great hall on your way back to the servants' wing, just in time to hear laughter behind the door's music, the light strum of a lute, someone reciting a poem about Venus and Mars. You slow your step, just a little, just enough to listen. The sound is sweet and distant, like remembering something that was never yours to begin with. But you see the royal physician pacing in the far corner. Someone important is ill, perhaps a courtier, perhaps the Queen herself. You work silently, the pestle heavy in your palm, releasing bitter scents into the air, myrrh, wormwood, crushed mint. Her gown is deep violet today, with sleeves edged in gold. Her face is solemn, pale beneath the powder, but her movements are exact, deliberate. She kneels without assistance, and you watch from the back as the Virgin Queen prays. You do not know what she says. No one does, but you sense that she is not asking for mercy, only strength. But you must polish the brass candlesticks, refill the vessels with holy water, and smooth the crimson cushions on the bench where she kneels. A tapestry of her mother, Anne Boleyn, hangs in one alcove, eyes forever looking just past yours. You've heard whispers that the Queen avoids this hallway when she can, but today she walks it without flinching. The air in the chapel is different. It carries centuries of incense, of whispered prayers, of dread. You don't speak. You barely breathe. You place the prayer book on the lectern, and then you retreat into the shadows, where your presence is required only in case something needs fixing. No one speaks. No one needs to. The sun has not risen, but Her Majesty soon will, and the day must be laid bare before she opens her eyes. You wrap your overgown tight around your shoulders, and step out into the chill corridor where your breath clouds in the air. It is colder today, the kind of cold that gets into bones. Today you are assigned to the Queen's Chapel, a rare duty, and one that requires absolute stillness. She enters mid-morning, flanked by a single lady and a silent guard. When she departs, you follow her ladies through the narrow hallway, past portraits of her ancestors, some crowned, some cursed. By noon, the palace is stirring faster than usual. At the stables, the air smells of hay, damp leather, and the warm musk of horses. Your next task is unexpected. You are summoned to assist the royal herbalist, a woman older than anyone you've seen in the palace. Her eyes cloudy with age, but her hands sharp and steady. By late afternoon, your fingers are stained brown, and your back is hunched from leaning over the mortar. You return to your quarters as the sun slips behind the towers, painting the stone walls with honeyed light. You will sleep soon. You lie down on your straw mattress, arms tucked beneath your head. You are not warm, you are not clean, but you are still here, and that, for now, is enough. The cold does not wake you. You've grown used to that. It's the bell, the low, slow ring that trembles through the halls like a ripple across still water, the morning summons. It doesn't call your name, but it calls your place. And so you rise, eyes heavy, limbs leaden, and wrap yourself once more in the coarse, faded gown you wore the day before. There is no wardrobe for servants like you, no silk or brocade, only wool worn thin by time and soap. You make your way to the upper floors where the Queen's private garden awaits a fresh layer of pine needles and dried petals. It is a strange task, sweeping nature into something deliberate, but nothing in her presence is allowed to grow wild. Even the ivy is trimmed to follow a pattern carved into the wall. You sweep slowly, the bristles brushing frost and soil alike, the scent of crushed time rising with every stroke. Birds rustle in the branches overhead, nervous and quick. The Queen might visit this space later, or she might not, but it must be ready all the same. Later, you are called to help set the table for the midday meal. Not the feast hall today, just a small gathering of the Queen's favorites. Every spoon, every goblet must be laid in exact alignment. The linens must be uncreased, the napkins folded like swans. You iron them with your hands, using the heat of your palms and a stone warmed near the hearth. As you place the knives, you remember to keep the blades facing inward, a small gesture. But here it is everything. The Queen enters after the guests are seated. She does not eat much. A sliver of pomegranate, a taste of eel pie. She listens more than she speaks, letting the others compete to amuse her. You stand beside the serving table, hands clasped, eyes lowered. One joke makes her laugh, a rare, sudden sound like a chime dropped into deep water. It echoes longer than the moment deserves, and then she falls silent again. After the meal, you help clear the table, careful not to spill a single crumb. You pass the footman who served the wine. He looks pale. Perhaps he poured too slowly. Perhaps she noticed. You don't ask. You return the silver trays to the scullery, rinse them in scalding water, and dry them with cloths too fine for your own skin. As the afternoon stretches thin, you are given a quieter task. You're told to dust the books in the royal library in honor, though no one calls it that aloud. The room is hushed, heavy with the scent of old vellum, beeswax, and forgotten ink. You move between the shelves slowly, gently brushing the bindings. The Queen loves knowledge. Her library holds hundreds of volumes: philosophy, theology, astronomy, poetry. Some written in Latin, some in Greek. You cannot read most of them, but you respect them. You handle each as if it were a living thing. In the corner of the room sits a globe-fated ancient, still bearing countries that no longer exist. You turn it once, slowly letting your fingers trace the oceans, the mountains, the places you'll never see. For a moment, you imagine what it would be like to stand on the deck of a ship, hair tangling in salt wind, staring out at something entirely unknown. But only for a moment. The palace pulls you back like a tide. As twilight creeps through the stained glass windows, the library dims to gold and shadow. You finish your task, bow slightly to no one in particular, and leave the room as quietly as you entered. You are tired now, truly tired. Not just in the body, but in the mind. The kind of tired that makes you forget your own name for a moment, makes the world blur at the edges. You pass the Queen's guard as they change post, their boots echoing against the stone like a metronome for palace life. Back in your quarters, your straw mattress awaits. A few others are already asleep, curled like commas beneath thin blankets. You change by candlelight and slide beneath your own coverlet, which smells faintly of dust and smoke. You close your eyes, and in your dreams the palace is quiet. No bells, no summons, just halls filled with wind and moonlight. And for the first time, you walk them alone, free. Morning doesn't begin with sunlight. It rarely does here. The day starts with footsteps and whispers, with the chill creeping in through the stone walls like a silent breath. You rise before your body truly agrees to, legs wobbling for just a moment, then steady into motion. You have no mirror, but you don't need one anymore. Your hands know the routine by heart: braid, pin, wrap, tie. The same dress, the same sleeves, the same scent of damp wool and old air. You are summoned to the Queen's robing room, and you go without question. The robing ritual is like a ballet you weren't taught, but somehow learned: silent, intricate, deeply symbolic. Today, Her Majesty is to appear before ambassadors from Venice, and so her gown is of deep crimson, trimmed in sable, with stiff lace rising like wings behind her head. You help carry the layers, the underskirt, the bodice, the sleeves. They are not light. They are not forgiving. You assist in placing the jeweled girdle across her waist. The pearls are cold to the touch. Everything is cold here until the Queen enters. Then all warmth is her own. She does not speak to you, but you are used to that. You recognize the flick of her fingers, the tilt of her chin, the subtle shifts that say more than words. You adjust the hem accordingly. You smooth the ruffs. You hold your breath. When she is ready, she walks, and the room moves with her. You are dismissed and sent to assist in the banquet hall. A formal dinner tonight. Every table must be scrubbed, every candlestick polished, until it reflects like a looking glass. You work alongside 2 other attendants, all of you moving in quiet rhythm. You arrange fruits in perfect piles: figs, dates, sugared plums, and place sprigs of rosemary in between to keep flies away. You press linens until your fingers feel raw. Later, you are asked to prepare the chamber pots, a task no one envies, but no one avoids. Even royalty must relieve themselves, though it is spoken of in code. You carry the pewter pot down a back corridor, past the kitchens, past the doors no guests ever see, and empty it into a trench that steams faintly in the morning air. You do not flinch. Not anymore. When the sun reaches its peak, you are asked to carry a message to one of the Queen's ladies. The note is sealed with red wax and smells of violet water. You don't know what it says, and you wouldn't dare ask. But the lady reads it, nods once, and tells you to bring her lavender gloves from her chamber. You do so. They are stitched with tiny gold bees. You return to your place without a word. Mid-afternoon brings music. The Queen wishes to be read to while her hair is brushed. You do not read, but you are asked to hold the scroll open for the lady who does. It is a Greek tale, translated to English something about Odysseus and the sea. You let the words wash over you, their meaning distant, yet soothing. The Queen sits still, eyes closed, while her locks are smoothed with rose oil. You hold the parchment steady, arms aching slightly, and wonder if the sea Odysseus sailed was ever as vast as this palace. When the reading ends, you are sent to prepare Her Majesty's writing desk for the evening. You clean the quills, refill the inkwell, and lay out fresh parchment. Her handwriting is delicate, precise, and you've often seen entire letters rewritten because one letter leaned too far to the left. You are careful not to disturb anything already there. Even the blotting sand must be fresh. As dusk falls, the palace lights shift. Torches are lit in every hallway. The guards begin their quiet patrols. The feast is underway, but you only pass it briefly carrying a forgotten goblet to the high table. You glimpse the Queen laughing softly at something a French envoy said. Her eyes are sharp, never tired. Her presence unmistakable. Then you're gone, back through the servants' door before the music rises again. Your day ends in the laundry room. You scrub linens with a stone and harsh soap, hands turning pink from cold water. The cloth smells of rosemary and sweat. You wring it out, hang it to dry, and hum softly to yourself, a lullaby you barely remember. One your mother used to sing, maybe. You're not sure anymore. You walk back to your cot, past the other tired figures, all retreating to corners of silence. You lie down, still dressed, blanket up to your chin, staring at the wooden beams above. Your eyelids lower, you exhale slowly. And once again, the palace breathes with you. The air is thick with stillness when you wake, the kind that clings to your skin before the day begins to stir. You've slept a little deeper, just a thread more than usual, and for a fleeting second you almost believe it's enough. The coals in the hearth have long since died. The frost has returned, creeping into the cracks of the stone walls like tiny fingers. You sit up slowly, rubbing your eyes, your joints stiff from the cold and the rhythm of repetition. Your breath ghosts in the air. The palace sleeps, but not for long. You begin the day at the Queen's aviary, a duty you were assigned only once before. Few are trusted with the birds. They are delicate, temperamental, and chosen not merely for beauty, but for symbolism. You step into the airy chamber where the finches and falcons rest. The falconer greets you with a nod and hands you a basin of fresh water. As you move carefully between the perches, you're struck by how quiet the birds are. Not silent, just respectful. You clean the cages, replace the seeds, and wipe the brass fittings until they gleam like morning sunlight. The Queen adores her birds. Some say she talks to them. Others say they carry messages no one else is allowed to read. Later in the morning, a request comes from the Queen's physician. Her Majesty requires a bath. Not the kind one imagines of bubbles and perfumes, but a ritual cleansing planned days in advance. You assist the laundress in preparing the linens and warming the water with heated stones. Buckets are passed hand to hand, steam rising in coils, fogging the corners of the chamber. You do not see her bathe, of course. That is not your station. But you wait nearby, standing outside the curtained alcove with clean towels folded in your arms. The sound of trickling water and soft voices carries through the velvet, and the scent rosemary, milk, rose oil follows you long after you leave the chamber. You are told to clean the queen's slippers afterward. They are not jeweled, not even embroidered, just soft, warm, and surprisingly plain, used for walking unseen in private spaces. You brush away specks of ash and lint, then place them gently beneath her bed as directed. Even this quiet intimacy with an object so close to her skin feels sacred in its own way. You wonder if she knows how many hands pass through her life unnoticed, how many people bend to ensure each step of hers remains smooth. As the queen rests, you are sent to help in the herbarium again. The old herbalist still works alone, muttering to herself, surrounded by racks of drying petals and roots. Today you help prepare a sleep tonic infusions of poppy and valerian stirred into a heavy ceramic jug. You carry it with care to the maid assigned to the queen's chamber, bow your head, and step away before she turns. The evening is hushed today. Fewer guests, no musicians, just the sound of wind rushing the shutters and the low rumble of conversation in distant halls. You are given rare time to walk alone in the courtyard under a silver-gray sky. The air smells of smoke and damp earth. You pass the stone fountain where moss creeps between the cracks, and the statues of ancient kings stare down at nothing in particular. You don't often get moments like this, so you walk slowly, memorizing each breath, each footfall. When the lanterns are lit for the night watch, you return to the servants' wing. Your legs ache, your back is tight, but your heart carries a strange stillness. You were not reprimanded today. You were trusted with soft slippers and sacred water and the hush of private chambers. That is a kind of victory here. Quiet, invisible, and just enough to make sleep easier. You climb into bed. The straw crunches beneath your weight. The candle flickers on the wall for a while before it gutters. You turn toward the darkness and feel the warmth left in your blanket from the day before. You close your eyes, and this time when sleep comes, it comes without resistance, like a curtain drawn softly over the day, like a whisper in a room full of silence, like the palace breathing out, and you finally breathing in. The soft sound of footsteps on stone wakes you one of the older maids beginning her rounds before the sun even considers rising. You sit up slowly, rubbing your hands together, feeling the ache in your shoulders from yesterday's endless lifting, carrying, scrubbing, listening. A new day waits for you like a sealed letter you're too afraid to open. You have no idea what's inside, but you already know it won't be addressed to you. Still, you stretch, breathe, and prepare to begin again, because the palace waits for no one. Today begins with linens, not the fine ones embroidered with the queen's crest. Those are handled by women older than you. No, today you strip the servants' bedding, hang the soaked cloths, and scrub the stone tubs where wool was washed. The water is still warm from an early fire, but it quickly cools as your fingers dive in again and again, dragging the soap into heavy folds, lifting away dirt that never really leaves. Your hands are rougher now, less soft than they used to be, but stronger too. You almost don't notice the chill anymore. Mid-morning, the steward calls for extra help polishing the great hall's floor. The queen is to pass through it on her way to meet with a visiting poet. You are not to be seen, but the floor must shine. So you kneel, cloth in hand, scrubbing circles into the stone until your arms hum with effort. The poet's arrival stirs a bit of energy into the day servants, whispering about whether he's handsome, whether he's bringing a new sonnet, whether he'll write a line about the queen's eyes. You try not to listen, but part of you wonders what it must be like to spend the day weaving words instead of washing linens. You're assigned to window duty after that, dusting the carved frames, scrubbing away smudges, pulling aside the velvet drapes to let in the pale light of late autumn. Some of the windows don't open any more, warped from age, sealed by frost, guarded by ivy. But others do, and as you clean the glass, a soft breeze brushes your cheeks. You pause for just a moment, letting it pass over your skin, close your eyes, and imagine a world without stone walls. Then comes the bell, the small silver one that means the queen wants something specific. You rush with two others to the chamber, holding your breath as you enter. Her Majesty stands near the fire, arms crossed, eyes narrow. She speaks not to you, but to her chief lady, asking for the locket that belonged to her father. It has been misplaced. A panic you are not allowed to show begins rising in your throat. You're told to search the wardrobe room, the prayer chamber, the small cabinet near the hearth. You do so, silently, desperately. At last, one of the queen's gloves is lifted from a cushion, and there beneath it, cold and glinting, is the locket. You don't say a word, you simply offer it to the nearest lady, bow, and step back. The queen does not thank you, but she exhales through her nose. And that is enough. Your final duty before evening is one you've come to both fear and love. Reading time. You don't read aloud, you simply hold the lamp while one of the older women reads to the queen from her favorite book of letters. Today it's correspondence from her cousin, Mary of Scots, words filled with pleasantries but lined with tension. You hold the light steady, watching the shadows move across the queen's face. She listens, unmoving. When the letter ends, she waves her hand, and you are dismissed once again. You walk back through the corridor, slowly. The wind has picked up outside, howling through the tiny cracks in the glass. The palace groans faintly in its bones, ancient wood, and cold stone, speaking to one another like old friends. You change into your sleep shift, crawl beneath the covers. The day is gone. You are too tired to remember most of it, but you remember the wind, and the fire, and the silence that followed her exhale. You close your eyes and drift. The morning is damp, heavier than usual, the kind of air that makes the tapestries cling slightly to the walls and the rushes smell more like earth than herbs. You wake slowly this time, blinking at the dim light creeping in through the high window slits. Queen Elizabeth prefers her meals to be a balance of not just taste, but harmony. Rosemary for remembrance, mint for clarity, sage for wisdom. You sort each stem with care, laying them into small woven holders that will decorate the corners of each platter. You stand with your arms elbow deep in gray water, the smell of lye sharp in your nose. You're given a crust of bread and a small bowl of lentils for your supper, which you eat seated on a low step just outside the scullery. Others gather there too, each of you silent, shoulders brushing, sharing the kind of peace that only comes after surviving another day. You can hear the lutes playing far off in the Queen's Hall, the faint rhythm of a galliard rising above the clatter of hooves in the outer court. You don't move. You just listen, letting the music fill the hollow space between your thoughts. Your fingers sting from yesterday's soap, and today's only deepens the soreness, but you press on. The receiving room is dark now, empty, still. You wonder if the Queen ever walks through it alone, if she ever just listens to the silence and feels, like you do, the breath of the past moving through the stones. The Queen will be attending a masque tomorrow, and her ruffs must be boiled, bleached, starched, and pressed into that perfect, almost impossible wheel of lace. The mattress welcomes you like an old friend. Your arms ache, your legs buzz, but your heart is strangely calm. You've done your duty. You've been invisible, essential, unremarkable, and unforgettable, all at once. You carry one carefully to the drying line, watching it stiffen as the air touches it. It looks like something a saint would wear, or an executioner, maybe both. The kitchen smells of smoke and boiled meat, but these little bundles cut through the heaviness with a brightness that feels hopeful, even if no one sees your hands doing the work. Your body is beginning to understand palace time, not marked by clocks, but by bells, footfalls, and the way the air itself seems to shift as duty approaches. Not cleaning, not mending, but standing in. One of the younger ladies in waiting has fallen ill, and they need someone small, quiet, reliable to help stage a rehearsal of court presentation. You are told to wear a practice gown and walk the length of the receiving room while one of the Queen's advisors tests timing and placement. You've never been in this room without sweeping it. Now you walk its length, every step echoing beneath the towering ceiling, under the painted eyes of monarchs past. You keep your chin low, your steps even. You feel for a fleeting moment like someone else entirely. You rise before the others, lacing your bodice in silence, letting your fingers fumble only once before they remember their task. Today will be long. They always are. You are sent to help the kitchen workers prepare herbs for the midday meal, not for seasoning, but for display. As the afternoon approaches, your name is whispered between two senior servants, and suddenly you are summoned for something different. But the moment doesn't last. The advisor barks a correction. Your turn was too slow, and the real ladies return shortly after, their laughter filling the room like bells. You curtsy and vanish through the side door, back to the places you belong. But even as you change out of the borrowed gown, your mind keeps the feeling of that space, the heat of imagined eyes on your face, the weight of a train trailing behind you, the whisper of silks where wool now rests. Evening brings laundry again. The sun dips low behind the towers. When it's time to sleep, you walk past the hallway where earlier you stood in her place. You lie down, and as the night deepens, the palace holds your breath along with its own. A pale beam of moonlight streaks across the wooden beams above you, and for a moment it's not morning or evening, it's something in between. A gentle hush has settled over the palace, one that feels older than the walls themselves. You stir before the bell this time, not from sound, but from instinct. Your feet find the cold floor, as though drawn by an invisible thread. Today you're told the Queen will be reviewing her guards, and though it sounds like nothing to you, it means everything in this world. Because when the Queen is seen in public, everything behind her must shine. Even you, though you'll remain hidden in shadow. You're assigned to polish the great bronze doors at the edge of the inner courtyard doors. The queen will pass by on her way to the square. They're tall, heavy, and carved with lions and dragons, their bellies caked with years of soot. You begin early, scrubbing with a paste made from ashes and vinegar, rubbing each curve and claw until your fingers go raw. The reflection that emerges isn't perfect, but it's enough to catch sunlight, and sometimes that's all the queen needs to be pleased. Not perfection, but obedience. As the palace comes alive, you're pulled away again, this time to tend to the chamber where the queen stores her personal writing instruments. Quills must be sharpened. Ink must be strained. Seals warmed gently over flame. The wax smells like lavender when it melts. You've never written a letter in your life, but here you are, handling the tools of command. You imagine what she writes late at night. Orders, poetry, warnings, love, perhaps all of them. When the guards assemble, you aren't permitted to watch. Instead, you're tasked with delivering a folded note to one of the queen's ladies-in-waiting, a silent handoff that must occur without notice. The hall is bustling, nobles shifting from one foot to the other, feathers brushing velvet, spurs clicking on stone. You pass through them like a shadow, eyes lowered and visible once more. The lady takes the note, nods slightly, and walks away. You do not ask what it said. You never do. Afterwards, the queen returns to her solar, and you are called to assist in retrieving her fan. It is made of swan feathers and ivory, delicate and pale as the edge of a dream. You hold it gently in both hands, afraid your warmth might bend it. When the queen enters, you offer it with a slight bow. She does not look at you, but she takes it. Her fingers graze yours for a moment. Cool, distant, powerful. It is the only contact you've ever had with her, and it lingers longer than it should. As twilight arrives, you're asked to help prepare the queen's chamber for rest. You lay out her nightgown, a long, finely stitched garment, scented faintly with rose. You help fluff the pillows, adjust the canopy, and place a fresh sprig of lavender beside her cup of warmed milk. Everything must be perfect, though no one will say it. Perfection is not praised here. It is expected. Once dismissed, you return through the quiet corridors, the sound of your steps muffled by thick rugs and deeper silence. The day feels heavier than usual, as if the palace itself has pressed its weight upon your shoulders. You pass a mirror in one of the side halls, one that nobles use to adjust their collars before entering court. You glance into it, and for a second you barely recognize the face looking back. Tired, pale, grown. You sleep that night with your hands curled into fists, not from anger, but habit, as if still holding a fan or a bucket or the day itself. And the queen sleeps above you, alone in her chamber of silk, unaware of the girl who made the room ready. Or perhaps somewhere in the depths of her mind she does know, and that's why you keep going. The sky outside the palace is overcast, a soft gray wash that filters the morning light into a hush rather than a glow. You wake slowly, as though the heaviness of the clouds has pressed its weight into your bones. Your joints crack quietly when you sit up. No bell yet. Just the rustle of someone else's blanket nearby, the subtle groan of a wooden floorboard as a figure walks past barefoot, half asleep. Today is a quiet day. No guests expected. No pageantry. But that never means rest. In the palace, quiet just means the queen is listening. You begin the day in the seamstress's alcove. A lacy cuff has torn on one of the queen's gowns, one worn just once, yet needing hours of labor to restore. You help sort needles, thread fine enough to vanish between your fingers, and hold the edge of the fabric taut, while the seamstress repairs it with movements like calligraphy. As you watch her stitch, you realize this palace is a kingdom of invisible hands. Every fold, every button, every gilded thread, guided by fingers like yours, unseen and unnamed. Afterward, you are summoned to assist with scenting the queen's chambers. The air must always be pleasant, never overpowering, never stale. You carry small terracotta bowls filled with dried rose petals, cloves, and crushed juniper, placing them discreetly in corners where the breeze from a high window can stir them. A piece of orange peel is pressed into your palm by the apothecary. "For her sleeve," he murmurs. "She likes the freshness." You nod and deliver it to the maid who dresses the queen. The smell lingers on your skin long after. You're given a strange task near noon. The queen's lapdog, tiny white, with a bow behind its ears, has dirtied one of the velvet cushions. You carry the cushion to the lower laundries, careful not to brush it against your skirt. There the washerwomen take over, grumbling quietly as they rinse the deep red fabric. You offer to stay and help wring the water from the heavier claws, and they let you. You work in silence, arms sore, but there's comfort in rhythm. Soap. Rinse, wring, hang. Again. By late afternoon, you're asked to deliver an item to the queen's astrologer. His chamber is high in the western turret, a place you've never been. The stairs are narrow, curling like a snail's shell, lit only by the occasional slit of daylight. You clutch the small wooden box close to your chest. Inside is a polished stone amber or jet, perhaps meant for use in tonight's reading. The astrologer answers the door himself. His eyes are milky with age, but his hands are firm as he takes the box and nods. "She dreams of signs," he says almost to himself. You bow and descend, one hand on the wall, to steady yourself. You do not ask what the stars will tell her. Evening comes faster than you expect. You help prepare the upper gallery where the queen will listen to a madrigal sung by candlelight. You dust the carved chairs, light the tallow candles, and pull the curtains wide to let in the first stars. When she arrives, you retreat behind the screen, hidden, but close enough to hear the music's rise and fall. The harmonies weave through the hall like threads pulled gently across your mind. You close your eyes for just a moment, just enough to forget the ache in your feet, just enough to feel strangely safe. When the song ends and the queen returns to her chambers, you help clear the gallery. Wax drips into your hands as you pinch the candles out. Smoke curls upward like sleep itself, rising into the carved ceiling beams. The silence that follows is thick and soft. No one speaks. You walk the hallway back to your cot, each step a little slower than the last. You curl beneath your blanket, limbs curled like parchment. You think of stars, of orange peels, of lapdogs and silence and women who mend lace that no one ever sees. And sleep finds you again, not in a rush, but as a presence that understands what it means to serve without question, to endure without voice, to rest without thanks. Dawn arrives like parchment unrolling soft, slow, and pale gold around the edges. You wake to the sound of broom bristles against stone, someone already sweeping the corridor outside your chamber, beginning their rhythm before the birds have even finished yawning. You stretch beneath the blanket and breathe in the coolness of the morning air, then rise and begin your routine again. You no longer think about the cold as a discomfort. It's simply the beginning, and beginnings are all you ever truly have in a place like this. Today brings something rare, preparation for a portrait sitting. The Queen has decided to have herself painted again, not because she needs another likeness. There are already dozens, but because she needs the world to remember her how she wishes to be seen. You are assigned to assist with the backroom preparations. The painter arrives early, bringing with him oils, fine brushes, panels, and a canvas tall enough to make your neck ache. His hands are stained with pigments. You help arrange the silks for the Queen's backdrop, deep crimson and shimmering pearl, each draped with such care it feels like dressing the moment itself. Before the Queen arrives, you are sent to fetch one of her symbolic rings from the treasury chamber. It's a narrow, locked space, thick with the scent of polished wood and iron. Inside, items are laid out like offerings: combs of gold, jeweled gloves, tiny daggers etched with Latin, and rings with secrets in their stones. The ring you retrieve bears a miniature portrait of her mother, Anne Boleyn, hidden. It's so small, so quiet, but you carry it with two hands as if it weighs more than the crown itself. When the Queen steps into the room for her portrait, everything holds its breath. She does not speak to you, but her presence fills the air like incense, strong, sweet, and difficult to ignore. She sits, adjusts the angle of her jaw, and stares beyond the painter toward something only she can see. You watch from the edge of the room as he begins his sketch, murmuring softly about light and angles, about truth and flattery. You wonder how it feels to become eternal with every brush stroke, to control the version of yourself that survives. Later, you are tasked with returning the silks used for the portrait, folding them in the linen room alongside a girl named Marjorie. You've only spoken to her once before, but today in the quiet, your fingers folding edges into precise squares, she asks what it was like to stand near the Queen. You don't know how to answer. You say it was like being near fire, not burning, but aware of its power. She nods, says she understands. That's all. As evening approaches, you're asked to assist in preparing a light supper for Her Majesty. A bowl of stewed quince, slices of bread still warm from the kitchen hearth, and a goblet of warm, spiced wine. You help arrange them on a silver tray, polishing the surface with your sleeve before handing it off to the steward. You never see her eat, but you imagine she does it the same way she does everything else, graceful, measured, watching, even as she swallows. The night winds down in silence. You help wind the clocks in the outer chambers, their slow ticking the only sound in the long halls. Then you return to your bed, slipping beneath the covers as your fingers twitch with the memory of silk, silver, and paint. In the darkness, you wonder if the Queen dreams of herself, if she sees the painted version or the mirror one, if she ever feels tired of being seen. You drift off holding that thought like a candle in a cold corridor. The final morning begins with a hush even deeper than usual, a hush not born of peace, but of preparation. Word is spread among the servants, whispers passed over bread, crusts, and behind sleeves that an ambassador from Spain will arrive before the sun is high. You rise early, hands already curled as if clutching a tray or twisting a cloth. The room is colder than normal, the air heavy with the weight of foreign eyes soon to walk these halls. Today must be perfect in a way that leaves no room for breath. and you feel it deep in your bones before the work even begins. You are assigned to help dust the chapel. The queen may pass through it on her way to meet the envoy. You sweep quietly between rows of wooden pews, brushing ash and candle wax from corners barely touched in weeks. Every inch must gleam as if it were made only yesterday. You pause briefly before the altar, where a single candle is still burning from the night before. You don't touch it. You simply watch its flame flicker in the stillness, steady and slow, like a breath taken in prayer. Later you carry linens to the queen's private closet, where she will change into her finest gown. You do not see her dress, but you hear the rustle of brocade, the soft murmurs of her ladies, the quiet commands given without pause. A scent follows her through the walls, jasmine and musk. You press your hands to your apron and wait outside the chamber, back straight, heartbeat slow. She passes by without a word, without a glance, but you still feel the wind of her presence. Then you are sent to the gallery, not to be seen, but to help light the lanterns that will hang near the windows, filling the hall with golden light for when the ambassador arrives. You climb the ladder carefully, one wick at a time, and from that height you see the queen move across the courtyard below. Her every step is measured, draped in cloth of gold, jewels glinting in her hair. She is not a woman in that moment. She is an empire in motion, and you, just above her, trembling on the ladder, realize the terrible power of being near such glory. The ambassador arrives. You are not allowed near, but the palace changes its rhythm around him. Guards straighten. Pages run faster. Even the air smells sharper. You are reassigned to the scullery, cleaning, scrubbing, boiling back to the work that no one sees. Your fingers sting with lye. Your eyes blur from the steam. But somewhere above you, voices murmur in Latin and French and English. Agreements, promises, warnings. You are not part of history. You are what it stands on. Evening falls slowly. The queen has retired early. The halls begin to empty. You are given one final duty, to prepare her bedchamber with fresh sheets. You walk the length of the palace with a folded bundle of linen in your arms, careful not to let the edges brush the floor. The chamber is dark when you enter. Only the embers remain in the hearth. You place the sheets down. Smooth them with your palm, and for one brief, ghost-silent moment you imagine what it must feel like to lie there, to rest without fear, to close your eyes knowing others will carry the weight of the day for you. You leave quietly, return to your own chamber, crawl beneath your blanket that still smells faintly of soap and straw. And as sleep pulls you under for the last time in this tale, you carry the memory of polished floors, whispering tapestries, and a queen who never once looked your way. This is why you wouldn't survive a day in Queen Elizabeth's palace. Not because the work is hard, not because the rules are strict, but because here invisibility is not a curse. It is the price of survival. And in a world of gold, silence is the only armor you'll ever wear.